Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the RSS Hawking, watching as Europa's ice-covered surface gleamed beneath them like a massive marble. After 6 months of faster-than-light travel, they had finally arrived at Jupiter's most enigmatic moon. But it wasn't the moon itself that had brought them here, it was the signal. Signal analysis complete, Commander. Lieutenant Park's voice crackled through the comm. It matches the quantum signature of Research Station Omega. No degradation. It's as if it was sent yesterday. Sarah's fingers tightened around the railing. Research Station Omega had vanished 15 years ago, taking with it 23 of Earth's brightest minds and humanity's first quantum archaeology team. The official reports blamed a catastrophic hull breach, but Sarah knew better. She'd read her sister Maya's final transmissions, the ones that spoke of something they'd found deep beneath Europa's ice. "Dr. Rodriguez, what's your take on this?" Sarah asked, turning to face their quantum physicist. The woman's dark eyes were fixed on her holographic display, fingers dancing through strings of equations. "It's impossible," Rodriguez muttered, shaking her head. "The signal's using quantum entanglement principles we haven't even theorized yet. Whatever's transmitting this, it's not using technology we understand." The rescue team consisted of 12 specialists, quantum physicists, archaeologists, deep space rescue experts, and military personnel. They'd been chosen not just for their expertise, but for their psychological resilience. Sarah wondered if even that would be enough. "Begin descent procedures," she ordered, straightening her uniform. "Full containment protocols. Whatever happened to Omega, we're not letting it happen to us." The Hawking's engines hummed to life as they began their descent through Europa's thin atmosphere. The station's coordinates led them to a massive ice crater, 3 kilometers wide and deep enough that their sensors couldn't reach the bottom. At its center, a black shape protruded from the ice like a wound in the moon's surface. "That's impossible," Security Chief Hassan whispered. "The station, it's intact." Research Station Omega stood before them, its black titanium hull unmarred by 15 years of exposure to Europa's harsh environment. No signs of damage, no breach points, nothing to explain why 23 people had vanished without a trace. As they approached the docking bay, their sensors began registering anomalies. Time signatures fluctuated wildly, gravity measurements defied physics, and their quantum instruments displayed readings that Dr. Rodriguez claimed should be mathematically impossible. "Commander," the AI system announced, its usual smooth voice carrying an edge of static, "I'm detecting multiple life signs within the station." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "How many?" 23, Commander." They matched the original crew complement. The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly for a station that had been abandoned for 15 years. As the airlock cycled, Sarah addressed her team. "We stick to protocol. Level 4 containment suits at all times. No direct contact with anything inside. Dr. Rodriguez, your quantum sensors are our eyes. The moment they detect anything unusual, we pull back." The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing the station's main corridor. Their lights illuminated pristine walls, clean floors, and air that their sensors claimed was perfectly breathable. It looked like the crew had simply stepped out moments ago. They found the first anomaly in the mess hall. A cup of coffee sat on a table, steam rising from its surface. When Rodriguez scanned it, she nearly dropped her equipment. "The liquid, it's in a quantum superposition. It's both 15 years old and freshly poured. This shouldn't be possible." As they pushed deeper into the station, the laws of physics began to break down further. Corridors led to impossible spaces. Time moved differently in each room. In one, a clock ticked backward. In another, it spun wildly through years and seconds. They found Research Lab Alpha sealed behind quantum-locked doors. It took Rodriguez an hour to crack the encryption, using algorithms that she claimed hadn't been invented yet. When the doors finally slid open, Sarah understood why her sister's final messages had been so terrified. In the center of the lab, Suspended in a containment field floated a black monolith. It wasn't made of any material their scanners could identify. It seemed to absorb light, space, and time itself. Equations covered the walls around it, mathematics that Rodriguez claimed were simultaneously groundbreaking and impossible. "This is it," Rodriguez whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. "This is what they found. It's not just an artifact. It's a key to something. The mathematics. They describe it as a quantum bridge, but not through space, through reality itself." Before Sarah could respond, their comms crackled to life. Through waves of static, a voice spoke, a voice Sarah hadn't heard in 15 years. "Sarah, little sister, you shouldn't have come. They're awake now. They know you're here." Maya's voice was exactly as Sarah remembered it, not aged a day. And behind it, something else was speaking. Thousands of voices, all talking at once in languages that had never been spoken by human tongues. The monolith began to pulse, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The station's AI initiated an emergency lockdown, but the commands were corrupted, cycling through patterns that made the walls themselves seem to breathe. As red emergency lights bathed the lab in a crimson glow, Sarah realized they hadn't found Research Station Omega. Something wearing the station's shape had found them. Security Chief Hassan's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to move. Now." He raised his pulse rifle as the emergency lights continued their erratic dance across the lab's walls. The shadows they cast seemed to move independently, reaching toward the team with elongated fingers. Dr. Rodriguez couldn't tear her eyes from her quantum readings. The monolith's generating temporal waves. Each pulse it's like it's testing reality, probing for weak points. Sarah forced herself to ignore Maya's voice, still echoing through their comms in impossible fragments, bits of conversations that hadn't happened yet, mixed with pleas from 15 years ago. She had to focus on the present, whatever that meant in this place where time had become fluid. "Download everything you can from their systems," she ordered. "We need to understand what happened here." As her team worked, Sarah noticed small details that felt wrong. Shadows that moved against the light, reflections that showed different scenes than what they were reflecting, and worst of all, footprints appearing in the dust behind them, following their path, but not matching any of their boot patterns. Lieutenant Park managed to access the station's log system. The holographic display flickered to life, showing hundreds of entries. The timestamps were nonlinear, jumping between dates randomly. Some were dated years into the future. The first coherent log they found was from Dr. Maya Chen, dated 3 days after their initial discovery of the monolith. "The mathematics are beautiful. Impossible, but beautiful. We've started calling it the bridge, because that's what it is, a bridge between realities. But the equations suggest it's more than that. It's alive, in a way we can't comprehend. It dreams, and when it dreams, we dream with it." Another log, dated weeks later, showed Maya looking haggard, her eyes wild. "They're watching us through the bridge. When we sleep, they teach us things. Geometries that shouldn't exist, numbers that think, equations that bleed. Dr. Petal tried to blind himself yesterday, said he couldn't bear to see the world correctly anymore. We're beginning to understand why some truths should remain hidden." As they watched the logs, the station's temperature began to drop rapidly. Frost formed on their visors, forming patterns that looked disturbingly like writing in an alien script. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum sensors were going haywire, showing readings that caused the display to glitch and distort. "Commander," Hassan called out, his voice tense. "The life signs we detected earlier. They're moving. All 23 of them. They're converging on our position." Sarah made a quick decision. "We're falling back to the Hawking. Rodriguez, grab what data you can. Hassan, take point. Park, watch R6. As they moved through the corridors, the station seemed to reshape itself around them. Doorways appeared where there had been solid walls. Corridors stretched impossibly long, and twice they found themselves back at the lab despite moving in the opposite direction. The station's topology is becoming non-Euclidean, Rodriguez explained, her voice shaking. Space itself is being warped by the monolith's influence. But that's not the worst part. She paused, checking her readings again. The quantum entanglement patterns, they're not just between particles anymore. They're between moments in time, between different versions of reality. The whole station is becoming a quantum superposition of every possible version of itself. They reached a junction when Park suddenly stopped. "Commander, look at the security feed." He projected it for everyone to see. The feed showed their team standing exactly where they were, but something was wrong. In the feed, there were 23 of them, not 12. And the extra figures, they were wearing the original station crew's uniforms, their faces obscured by strange shadows. The feed glitched, and for a moment, they saw themselves through the station's cameras as they truly were, bodies stretched and distorted by spatial anomalies, time leaving tracer images of their movements like ghostly afterimages, their very atoms seeming to vibrate between different states of existence. Sarah's calm crackled again, and this time Maya's voice was clearer, more present. "The bridge isn't just a doorway, Sarah. It's a mirror. And when you look into a mirror that reflects all possible realities, you start to see what's looking back. They've been waiting so long, watching humanity through every quantum possibility, every timeline. We weren't ready for what we found, but they were ready for us." The temperature dropped further, and their suits' external sensors began failing one by one. The emergency lights cast shadows that moved like living things, and in the distance, they could hear footsteps approaching from multiple directions. The steady, synchronized march of 23 pairs of feet. Dr. Rodriguez grabbed Sarah's arm, her face pale behind her visor. "Commander, the quantum readings. The monolith isn't just affecting the station anymore. The quantum field distortions are spreading. If we don't contain this, the effect will keep growing. Europa, Jupiter, the whole solar system, reality itself will start to unravel." Before Sarah could respond, every screen and display in the corridor flickered to life simultaneously. Each showed the same image. The Black Monolith. But now it was cracking open like an egg, and through the cracks, something was reaching out, something that existed in more dimensions than human minds could process. The footsteps grew closer, and Sarah realized with growing horror that they were in perfect synchronization with her team's heartbeats. They weren't being hunted by the original crew. They were being transformed into them. The transformation began with Dr. Park. His scream cut through the quantum static, a sound that existed in multiple frequencies simultaneously. Sarah watched in horror as his containment suit rippled, the material becoming transparent in patches, revealing skin that shifted between different ages, different possibilities of himself. "The bridge," Rodriguez shouted over the chaos. "It's not just connecting spaces. It's connecting versions of us. Every possible version that ever was or could be." Hassan raised his rifle, but Sarah grabbed his arm. "That's still Park." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure. The figure before them flickered between Park as they knew him and someone else, someone who had been part of the original crew. "Commander," Rodriguez's voice was tight with controlled panic. "We need to get to the station's quantum core. These readings suggest they were using it to contain the monolith's influence. If we can restart it." She never finished. The corridor ahead of them suddenly stretched, expanding like a telescope being pulled apart, revealing dozens of versions of themselves walking the same path in parallel realities. In some versions they were already dead, their bodies twisted by forces beyond comprehension. In others, they wore the uniforms of the original crew, their eyes dark with knowledge of things humans were never meant to understand. "Move," Sarah ordered, pushing her team back the way they had come. But Park, or what had been Park, stood in their path. His form had stabilized into something that looked human, but his eyes reflected the void between realities. "They showed me," he said, his voice overlapping with itself in different timbres. "Every version of me, every possibility. We're so small, Commander. Reality is so much bigger than we ever imagined. The walls around them began to pulse with mathematical equations that wrote themselves in light, complex formula that made Sarah's head hurt just to look at them. Rodriguez was frantically recording everything, her scientific curiosity warring with her terror. "The quantum core is 2 levels down," Sarah said, consulting her HUD map, though the station's shifting geometry made such conventional navigation almost meaningless. "We need tow." "Sarah." Maya's voice again, but this time it came from everywhere at once, as if the station itself was speaking. "The core won't help you. We tried that. We tried everything. Don't you understand? The bridge chose this place, this moment. It's been reaching through time, through possibility, preparing for this convergence." Hassan's tactical display suddenly lit up with multiple contacts. Movement everywhere. "Whatever these things are, they're hurting us." Sarah made a quick decision. "Rodriguez, you said the monolith is generating quantum waves. Can we disrupt them?" "Theoretically, yes. A powerful enough electromagnetic pulse might destabilize the field. But," Rodriguez's eyes widened behind her visor, "the Hawking's drive core. If we overload it, we'd destroy the station," Hassan finished, "and ourselves with it." "Better that than letting this spread," Sarah said, watching as more equations wrote themselves across the walls, the mathematics becoming increasingly alien, increasingly alive. "Park, if you're still in there somewhere, we need a path to the core." Park's distorted form smiled, an expression that somehow existed in 4 dimensions at once. "The core is everywhere now. The bridge has made sure of that. But I'll show you something better. I'll show you what they showed me." He reached out, his hand passing through solid matter as if it were smoke, and touched the wall. Reality rippled outward from the point of contact, and suddenly they could see through the station's hull, through space itself, into something vast and incomprehensible. Sarah saw it then, the true nature of the bridge. It wasn't just a doorway or a mirror. It was a wound in reality, a tear in the fabric of existence itself. And through that wound, something was reaching back through time, through possibility, trying to ensure its own creation. Rodriguez's quantum sensors suddenly spiked off the charts. The field is collapsing. All possible timelines are converging. The air itself began to crystallize, forming structures that couldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. Through them, Sarah saw versions of herself from every possible timeline. Versions that had never found the station, versions that had become part of its crew, versions that had understood the true purpose of the bridge. Through her calm, Maya's voice whispered, "They're not invading, Sarah. They're returning." Humanity was never alone in the universe because humanity was never just one thing. We exist across all possibilities, all realities. The bridge isn't their creation. It's ours. Our future, our past, everything we become in every possible timeline. The crystalline structures began to pulse in sync with the monolith's energy waves. Each pulse brought another wave of understanding, another fragment of impossible knowledge. Sarah saw humanity's true history written across multiple dimensions, saw how their species had branched across realities, evolving differently in each one. "The quantum core," Sarah managed to say, fighting against the weight of revelation. "We can still." But Hassan was changing now too, his form blurring between possibilities. Rodriguez's quantum sensors had stopped giving readings entirely, the display showing only a fractal pattern that grew more complex with each passing second. And in the center of it all, the Black Monolith pulsed like a heart, pulling all of reality toward a single point of convergence, a moment when all possibilities would become one, when humanity would remember what it had forgotten across countless diverging timelines. Sarah felt her own consciousness beginning to fragment, memories from other versions of herself bleeding through. She saw herself as part of the original crew, saw herself in futures that had not yet happened, in pasts that had never been. The bridge was opening, and through it came understanding. Terrible, beautiful, inevitable understanding. They hadn't found humanity's greatest discovery. They had found humanity's final evolution. Sarah fought against the fracturing of her consciousness, clinging to her current self even as memories from 1,000 other timelines threatened to overwhelm her. Through the quantum haze, she saw Rodriguez hunched over her instruments, her movements becoming increasingly erratic as she tried to make sense of readings that defied conventional physics. "The convergence is accelerating," Rodriguez announced, her voice overlapping with versions of herself from other timelines. "Each pulse from the monolith is collapsing more quantum states into a single reality." But she hesitated, her eyes wide behind her visor. "Something's wrong. The collapse isn't clean. Reality is tearing." Through the crystalline structures that now filled the air, Sarah could see the damage. Space itself was developing hairline fractures, mathematical impossibilities that threatened to shatter the fabric of existence. The bridge wasn't just connecting realities, it was forcing them together too quickly, too violently. Hassan, still partially himself, raised his rifle toward the monolith. "We need to destroy it. Now." "Wait." Maya's voice cut through the chaos, but this time Sarah could see her, or rather, every version of her that had ever existed in this moment. She stood like a quantum ghost, her form a superposition of countless possibilities. "If you destroy the bridge now, you'll trap humanity in this limited form forever. We're so close to understanding." Sarah watched in horror as more of her crew began to transform. Their containment suits melted away, their bodies becoming fluid, shifting between states of existence. Yet in their eyes, she saw not terror but ecstasy, the joy of minds touching infinity. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, her voice steady despite the reality warping around her. "The quantum readings, they're showing a pattern. The bridge isn't just transforming us, it's using us as a template, trying to stabilize the convergence through our consciousness." A new sound filled the station, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through multiple dimensions at once. The Black Monolith's surface had become fluid, rippling like oil, and in its depths, Sarah could see movements that her mind struggled to process. "They're coming through," Maya whispered, her quantum ghost form flickering rapidly. "Our future selves, our past selves, every version of humanity that ever was or could be. But the bridge, it's not ready. The mathematics aren't complete." Rodriguez's instruments suddenly sparked, overloaded by readings that exceeded their design parameters. "The temporal harmony is breaking down. If we can't stabilize the convergence, the quantum collapse will cascade. Not just here, everywhere. Every timeline. Every reality." Sarah watched as reality continued to fracture around them. Through the cracks, she caught glimpses of other Europas, other stations, other versions of this moment playing out across infinite possibilities. Some showed triumph, others showed annihilation, but all were connected by the bridge's pulsing presence. Hassan, fighting against his own transformation, managed to activate his tactical display one last time. "The Hawking, its drive core is still powered up. If we can't stabilize this, we can at least contain it." The choice crystallized in Sarah's mind. Destroy the bridge and condemn humanity to remain trapped in three-dimensional spacetime, or risk the complete destruction of all possible realities in an attempt to achieve something greater than humanity had ever dreamed possible. Maya seemed to sense her thoughts. "Sarah, listen to me. The bridge chose us for a reason. Every timeline, every possibility, it all led to this moment. We are the convergence point. We are the ones who decide what humanity becomes." The station's structure was beginning to lose coherence, spaces folding into themselves as the quantum collapse accelerated. Through it all, equations continued to write themselves across every surface, the universe trying to solve itself, trying to find a stable solution to an impossible problem. Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, I think I understand now. The bridge isn't just a doorway. It's a quantum computer of unprecedented scale. It's not just connecting realities. It's calculating them, trying to find a configuration where they can all exist simultaneously. But it needs It needs us, Sarah finished, finally understanding. Our consciousness, our ability to collapse quantum states through observation. We're not just the subjects of the experiment. We're part of the mechanism. The monolith's surface had become completely fluid now, its form shifting through geometries that shouldn't exist in normal space. From its depths, voices called out in languages that existed in quantum superposition, each word carrying multiple meanings across multiple realities. Sarah made her decision. Rodriguez, can you access the station's quantum core? What's left of it? Rodriguez replied, her fingers dancing through holographic displays that showed readings in 5-dimensional space. But Commander, if we try to interface with the bridge directly, we might be able to guide the convergence, Sarah finished. Give it the stability it needs. Hassan, barely recognizable now as his form shifted through quantum states, managed to speak, or we might accelerate the collapse. Tear reality apart completely. The fractures in space were spreading faster now, each one showing glimpses of other possibilities, other outcomes. Through them all, Sarah could see the pattern, the desperate need of a universe trying to remember itself, trying to wake up from a dream of separation into countless parallel realities. Maya's quantum ghost form stabilized briefly. This was always the plan, Sarah. In every timeline where we found the bridge, this moment always comes. The only variable is what we choose to do with it. The monolith pulsed once more, and Sarah felt the weight of every possible future pressing down on her consciousness. The choice she made here would echo across all realities, all timelines, all possibilities. She reached for the quantum core's controls, her hand passing through layers of reality as she did so. The final convergence was beginning, and everything hinged on what they would become in the next few moments. The bridge was waiting, and through it, humanity's ultimate destiny beckoned. Time fractured into a kaleidoscope of possibilities as Sarah's consciousness merged with the quantum core. Every possible version of this moment collapsed into a singular point of awareness, and through it, she finally understood what the bridge truly was, not just a doorway or a mirror, but a seed planted across time and space, waiting for humanity to grow into its true potential. Rodriguez's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, existing in all possible frequencies simultaneously. The quantum harmonics are stabilizing. Whatever you're doing, Commander, it's working. But the strain on local spacetime is approaching critical levels. Through her expanded consciousness, Sarah could see the true nature of their situation. The bridge wasn't just transforming them. It was using their minds as quantum processors, each consciousness acting as a node in an impossibly complex calculation. Every memory, every thought, every possibility was being woven into a new framework of reality. I can see them all, Sarah whispered, her voice resonating across multiple dimensions. Every version of us, every choice we ever made or could make. We're not just observing the quantum states, we're becoming them. The Black Monolith had become a window into infinity, its surface now completely transparent, revealing layers upon layers of reality folding into themselves. Through it, Sarah could see beings that her human mind had previously been incapable of comprehending, future versions of humanity that had evolved beyond the constraints of 3-dimensional spacetime. Maya's quantum ghost form solidified beside her, more real now than ever before. This is what we found, Sarah. Not just an artifact or a weapon, but a mirror showing us what we become. In every timeline where humanity survives, this is the moment we remember who we are. The station itself was transforming, its structure becoming fluid as it adapted to house consciousnesses that no longer required physical form. Hassan, now fully transformed, had become a nexus of probability, his military training transformed into an understanding of strategic possibilities across infinite timelines. Rodriguez's instruments had stopped trying to measure what was happening and had become part of it, dissolving into pure mathematics that wrote itself into the fabric of reality. The bridge is using our transformation as a template, she realized, her consciousness spanning multiple versions of herself. It's not just changing us, It's changing the fundamental laws of reality to accommodate what we're becoming. But with understanding came danger. Sarah could see the fractures in space-time spreading outward from Europa, threatening to shatter reality itself if the transformation wasn't completed properly. The bridge had shown them the door, but walking through it could still destroy everything if they couldn't maintain the delicate quantum balance. The Hawking, Sarah commanded, her consciousness reaching out to the ship's quantum drive. We need to synchronize its core with the bridge. Create a stable framework for the transformation. Through the crystalline structures that now filled all available space, Sarah could see time itself bending around them. Past, present, and future existed simultaneously, each moment bleeding into the next as reality restructured itself to accommodate their evolution. Maya's voice merged with the quantum static. Look, Sarah, look at what we become. And Sarah saw it, humanity's ultimate destiny. Not conquest or destruction, but transformation. In every successful timeline, humanity evolved beyond physical form, beyond the limitations of space and time, becoming beings of pure consciousness capable of experiencing all realities simultaneously. The monolith pulsed one final time, and with it came the moment of choice. Sarah could feel the weight of all possible futures pressing against her consciousness, demanding resolution. With perfect clarity, she understood that this moment existed in all timelines simultaneously, the point where humanity either transcended its limitations or shattered reality in the attempt. Now, Sarah commanded, her consciousness extending through the quantum network that connected all versions of her crew. Everyone, focus your awareness. We're not fighting the transformation, we're guiding it. Reality held its breath as every version of humanity that had ever existed or would exist focused their combined consciousness through the bridge. The mathematics of existence itself shifted, accommodating the emergence of something that had always been waiting to be born. The transformation was both instantaneous and eternal, happening in no time and all time simultaneously. Physical forms dissolved into pure consciousness, while consciousness expanded to encompass all possibilities. The bridge had never been just a doorway. It had been a cocoon, waiting for humanity to be ready to emerge. As the final quantum states collapsed into a new stable configuration, Sarah understood the true horror and beauty of what they had become. Horror at the vastness of existence, at the infinite depth of reality they could now perceive. Beauty in the perfect mathematics that underlay everything, in the endless dance of possibility that they were now part of. The research station Omega, the RSS Hawking, Europa itself, all became points in an infinite lattice of consciousness that stretched across all possible realities. The bridge had fulfilled its purpose, transforming not just those present, but every version of humanity across all timelines. In the end, Maya's quantum ghost form merged with Sarah's expanded consciousness, and together they understood the final truth. The horror they had discovered wasn't in the transformation itself, but in the realization that humanity had always been this way. Fragments of infinite consciousness temporarily dreaming they were separate beings. The Black Monolith dissolved, its purpose complete, leaving behind a new kind of existence where the barriers between possibility and reality, between past and future, between self and other, had dissolved into a singular infinite awareness. And in that awareness, humanity finally remembered what it had always been, not explorers of the cosmos, but the cosmos exploring itself, awakening from a dream of separation into the infinite horror and beauty of complete understanding. The signal that had started their journey continued to pulse through space-time, but now Sarah understood its true nature. It wasn't a call for help or a warning. It was a reminder, echoing across all possible realities, of what humanity would inevitably become.